Hi, how you doing? Thanks so much for being here today. I'm instructor Dwayne Jenkins. In today's video, we're going to be talking about some guitar soloing stuff. I teach guitar lessons and I get questions all the time about different things, aspects about playing guitar, and then so I make videos on them. And one of the questions I've asked recently was about playing the minor pentatonic scales, and then one of my students had asked me if it's possible to play other notes besides the ones that are in the scale, okay? And the answer to that is yes, you can, but you want to play only certain notes. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is about playing these certain notes that you can add to the minor pentatonic scale. So if that's something you're interested in, stick around and we'll learn about that.
Audio Jungle.
Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to use pentatonic pattern 1 as an example of what I'm talking about. And this can be applied to all 5 of them. And actually in these scale patterns that you choose to use, your modes, whatever it is, I would highly recommend starting out with these ones first because they're simple and they're very common in rock guitar playing, okay? Probably the most common out of all the scales, so I would definitely start with these. They're pretty easy to use. Now our number 1 pattern is real simple. We're just going to play an A here. It's a pretty common place to start. It's going to be 5-8, 5-7, 5-7, 5-7, 5-8, 5-8, okay? You want to get to know that really, really well, alright? Now in order to add notes, there's a couple ways you can do it. We can do it by ear, you know, and just kind of figure out what sounds good. But what happens is sometimes you play notes that don't sound right. They're what I would call sour notes, notes that aren't in the key, okay? What you want to do is you want to understand what it is you're playing. That's the whole purpose of taking lessons in the first place, is to understand what you're doing, okay? Now your minor pentatonic scale is made up of 5 notes. That's why it's called penta, meaning 5, pentatonic, meaning 5 notes. So in A, we have the 1, the flat 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, and the flat 7. It's made up of those 5 notes. 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7. Okay? And we know that's the flat 7 because of the fact that right here is the octave, meaning the same note as the 1. Now in any major key, your 7 and your 8 are going to be right next to each other. So if you're going to play like the A major scale, so you can hear that do, re, mi in there. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. You can tell that the 7 is right next to the 8. So by playing this note, we know that's a flat 7. This is our flat 3rd because we would go do, re, mi. There's our natural 3rd, and we're actually flattening it by 1 note. So now we know we have the 1, flat 3, the 4, because if we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so we know we're playing the 4 and the 5, the flat 7. So 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7. Then we go back to the 1 and do it all over again. And we end up back on the 1 again. And then we end up there, back up there, okay? So as long as you understand that, you're going to sound good every single time, okay? So those are the 5 notes we're playing. The 1, the flat 3, the 5, and the flat 7. So then we say, well, how do we add notes to that? Well, if you add notes that are in the scale, it'll sound good. Like for instance, let's say we wanted to add the 7 right here on the 6th string. That would be the natural 2. So now we have 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7. Okay, that's one thing. Now the most common note to add to the scale is our flat 5. Now I just mentioned earlier, we have the 1, the flat 3, the 4, the 5, and the flat 7. So if this is the 5, that means this is going to be our flat 5. This note right here. Either our flat 5, call it a flat 5 this way, or we call it a sharp 4th or an augmented 4th, whatever you want to call it. It's different names for it. That's why music's kind of hard to understand because of all the different terminology. But it's basically a flat 5th, okay? And this is probably the most common note to add to the scale is this one right here. It creates what's called a blues scale. And we can add it in 2 positions because of our octaves. I would highly recommend knowing your octaves. Learn your octaves because it's going to let you know where notes are located on different strings very, very quickly. So make sure you know that, okay? So if you know your octaves, we know that there's a note here, same note as here. So we can add this note in 2 places. We can add it here And we can add it here. So now our scale would be the 1, flat 3, 4, flat 5, 5, flat 7, and then the 1, flat 3, 4, flat 5, 5, flat 7, back to the 1 again, okay? And notice how that note right there kind of adds a little darkness to the scale. Oops, sorry about that. So it's in two places. Right here on the 5th string, on the 6th fret in the key of A minor, and then right here at the 8th fret on the 3rd string. Okay? That's probably your most common one to add. Now you can also add other ones too, like I mentioned, the 2 right here. So you could go like this. Now you have 3 notes on that string, 3 notes on this string. So that right there is going to give you some really cool stuff that you can do with the minor pentatonics a little bit different by adding just those 2 notes. We can also know that since this is the flat 7, our 6 is going to be right next to it right here, which is our F sharp because of the octave. Remember I mentioned the octave? F sharp, G sharp, A. So this is our 6 right here. This would be the 7, the flat 7, the 6. 6 is also right here. So now we can also go 1, 2, flat 3, 4, flat 5, 5, 6, flat 7, 8. Okay? So there we've just expanded the scale a little bit by adding notes that fit within the scale and they're going to sound good. So now that we have 3 notes here, the 6, the flat 7, the 8, then we also have 3 notes here on this because we added the flat 5th here. So now we can go. So there, right there, by just adding those 3 notes, the 2, the flat 5th, and the 6, in those 3 positions, we have a lot more variety of what we can do with the scale. Okay, the scale pattern, the pentatonic pattern number 1. So you don't have to just stick with these notes, although these are good, they're easy and good to stick with. But if you want to expand on that, you can add these other notes, okay? You can add all the notes that are in the scale. Actually, you just have to know where they're at, and that's going to make a difference, okay? You start adding notes that aren't in the scale, it's going to just start sounding terrible, and you don't want that. So make sure you know your notes, know your octaves, understand what the notes are that comprise this, that create the scale, I guess you could say, and then know how you can add those other notes to give it more diversity. Okay, so there we have it. How to add a few additional notes to your scale. Okay, so if you know the scale really well and you say, oh, I'm kind of bored of playing that, or I want to add something to it, you can. Just make sure that they're notes that are within the scale that you're playing, okay? What you're playing is a minor scale, the minor pentatonic. Remember the notes that it's created of, okay? That's comprised of, I guess you could say that. If I learn how to talk, that might help. But yeah, just know that it's those 5 notes that I mentioned to you in the lesson, okay? And then how to add those other notes that are within the scale. Because scales, you think of your major scales like your tree trunk, okay? Your chromatic scale is all 12 notes that are in the scale, in the musical alphabet, okay? That's like the roots of the tree. And then out of those 12 notes, we take 8 notes to create the major scale, and that's like the tree trunk, okay? And then out of that is all the branches that come off the tree. You know, your minor scales, all your chords and all that stuff come off that tree trunk, which is your major scale. So the better you know your major scale, the better you're gonna know how to manipulate the notes to create all the other scales, okay? And that's really what it is. It's just knowing the notes that fit within the scale. So when you're playing, let's say in the example I showed you in the lesson, A minor, what we're doing is we're just flattening the 3rd and we're flattening the 7th, and that's what what gives it that minor scale. Now, if we know where those are located at, then we know we can add like our flat fifth, which gives it the blues scale. That's the blues scales by adding that flat fifth in there. And then we can also, like I mentioned in the lesson, that you could add your 2, you could add your 6, you could add your 4. There's all kind, you can add any of those notes that are in that scale. You just got to know where they're located at. And if you know that, then you're going to be able to add them at any time, and you're still going to sound good. Now, if you add some of those other notes, you can, but you just want to kind of use them as passing notes, not to land on them, because then they'll become like sour notes, or, you'll be able to hear they just don't fit in the scale. And the reason why those notes is because they don't fit in the scale. That's why they don't sound right, okay? So if you want to know more about this stuff, be sure to check out my book, Lead Guitar Wizardry Volume 1. It's currently on sale on Amazon. I think about 56% off. I just redid the cover, and I formatted it better, so it's for better learning. I go through this specific lesson here in the book about adding additional notes, right here, and I give you some examples on, where they're located at and things like that. It's written in real simple tablature, and give you a lot of good examples for that, okay? So thank you so much once again for being here. Appreciate it. Be sure to keep practicing. Know your notes. Your notes are so important. If you know that stuff, you know where they're located at, it's going to make you a lot better guitar player, and you're going to be able to find those additional notes that you can add to the minor pentatonic scale, all right? So be sure to check out my website. Join my newsletter, my Dwayne's Guitar Club newsletter, so you get a lot of free lessons coming at you through email that'll show you how to enhance your guitar playing very, very quickly. And if you have any questions at all about anything, be sure to leave me a comment below. If there's some things that have helped you with these scales, let me know in the comments below. That way we can share them with other people who are trying to learn this kind of information, all right? So keep practicing. Have yourself a wonderful day, and I'll see you at our next lesson.